Hi, this is Misha, and it's time again to talk about one of my favorite guns, the Beretta BM59. And we have talked about this several times, kind of looking at several different angles. And so I thought we would kind of approach it a different way again today. This is a standard version. It has the 19.3 inch barrel. It has the earlier style 5 inch slotted compensator with Garand style bayonet lug. This is an 80s gun from Springfield. And also on the table, have something a little more unique. This is the Mark III, the Paratroopers Gun. This has an 18.4 inch barrel, folding stock as you see, and it has the quick detaching 7 inch tri-compensator with the more updated M1 carbine style bayonet lug. So yeah, I thought we'd just chit chat about these today. We have several videos already. We did one, set these on their bipods. We did one comparing the BM59 to the M14 last year, really looking at what Italy and Beretta did versus what the US and Springfield. Now, both really started with the M1 Grand. The Grand was adopted in 1936 and was quite a revolutionary gun for its day and time, and even more than that, the concept behind it was very revolutionary. The Grand was really the first self-loading, i.e. semi-auto, rifle to be adopted for general issue, mass spread use in the military, and it served very well in World War II. In fact, after World War II, many nations, Italy included, obtained hundreds of thousands of M1 Grands for their own use. Italy liked the Garand so much that in 1949 it contracted with the US to produce the Garand under license. The US would send them the old Winchester production line, and by 1953 they would be up and running producing their own Grands. Both Beretta and Breda would make them. These would be standard Grands in 30-06. Italy would make them for its own military, also for export, namely to Denmark. At least that's the one we tend to know today. After the Korean War, though, the M1 Grand was starting to look a little long in the tooth, and the 7.62 NATO cartridge was coming into use, 308, and by 1955 was getting more and more widespread amongst the NATO allies. So the US would adopt the M14 in 1957. Now, like I said, we have a video talking about that whole process and how long it took and how much money and how it was supposed to do lots of things and what it actually ended up doing. And in that video we also say, well, Italy looked at it and basically just reworked the M1 Grand into the BM58 prototype. Mr. Salsa was the primary lead designer at Beretta that worked on this, but it was a team effort, of course. These went through early military trials, a few tweaks were made, and by 1959 they were tested again and adopted by the Italian military. And what the BM59 is simply an M1 Grand chambered for 7.62 by 51 NATO. It is select fire, and it is fed from detachable 20-round box mags. Also, while some early ones would be made with modified Garand barrels, soon they would go to their own pattern, a barrel that is just under 19.5 inches. It's about 19.3. They would also kind of adapt the Garand gas system. Any of you who fire Garands know they tend to be a little ammo sensitive because of the asymmetrical op rod system. Well, what Beretta would do, they would straighten out the op rod. They would also shorten it to more of a carbine style. And this really improved reliability and durability of the gas system. Otherwise, it's the same operating principle, they just tweaked it a bit. The sights are Garand style, windage and elevation adjustable peep rear. The receiver is a modified Garand receiver. In fact, as much as 75% of the Italian military's BM59s were built on modified M1 Garand receivers. They had a very waste not, want not attitude. Most all the parts on here could be modified Garand, bolts included, trigger packs. Obviously, they would go to a shorter pattern stock. As I said, this is the earlier style muzzle device. It takes in modified M1 Garand bayonet, like the one I have laying on the table. That's a Garand, but they would basically put a larger ring on it to fit around the muzzle device. This acts as a flash hider and a brake. This particular one does not act as a grenade launcher, although this does have the flip-up grenade sights on this rifle. These also double as a gas cutoff. Has the folding light bipod, short upper handguard. These magazines are 20 rounds, made of steel. They're very durable. The sling swivel can be located either on the bottom or the side, and the rear sling swivel rotates. The butt plate is made of rubber with a trap door for quite a large storage compartment for a cleaning kit. And we have this nice fold down trigger for use with winter gloves. Nice guns, and like I said, we talk about these in other videos. That's how I'm kind of rushing through. The BM59 would be adopted, and by the early 60s began to replace the older Garand and carbine in Italian military service. And would be very successful and very, very affordable for them. The BM59 would remain in frontline service officially until 1990, and it took them until the late 90s to pull them out of the front line, and it really wasn't until the 21st century that they came out of reserve service. It's worth pointing out that beginning in 1972, some special forces started using the Beretta AR-70, but the standard gun was always the BM59. Now this gun here is a Mark I. Now there are many, many variations. We talk about them. For example, there's the BM59E and BM59 SL. We have a video on those. It's actually a James River build that I've got featuring that, talking about Argentinian. There were some earlier versions too where they were still transitioning over that had more M1 Garand features and so on. But the Mark I came in, and this is pretty much it here with the earlier style muzzle device. The Mark II would be the same as the Mark I, but it would have a pistol grip stock. Then the Mark III here, this is it. The Mark III would have the same pistol grip style stock, but we would have a side folding metal strut here. Very easy to fold. This collapses here by squeezing it up like that, and then there's a push button here that folds it over to the side. Quite compact. Now the standard Mark III would have the standard barrel assembly, 19.3 inches with the fixed compensator, usually the 7-inch. But there was also the Paratrooper version, which we have here, which is even a little special. We still have the same folding stock. We still have the 7-inch with the tri-comp features. This does double as a grenade launcher. Sides. But for airborne, this twists off QD style. And it really makes it quite compact. We're taking off a lot of length here. And this has an 18.4, so just under 18.5-inch barrel. Now interesting, the gas system and all this is the same as on the Mark I or the Mark II, but on those guns the barrel sticks out another inch, just under, and that actually goes into the tri-comp device to make a tighter seal for grenade launching. So what they did is they cut the barrel down by an inch, so when it was put in, say, a drop bag, We were taking that much more off, and then once the paratroopers hit the ground, we could still have a fully functional gun, and we weren't supremely compromising the barrel length, and we didn't have to go to a special gas system with specialized parts. You can actually put a standard muzzle device. This is a collar here. All you have to do is unscrew and remove this gas system here like you would on a Grand. This just unscrews and you can put on a standard one. So very interchangeable and a very neat idea. This is a very compact gun. It even fits in a standard Soviet AKS-74 drop case. I've tried it. And these are pretty neat. There haven't been very many kits and guns. The receiver, of course, is all the same. Interestingly, many of the paratrooper guns were restricted to semi-auto only because of their size, also because paratroopers weren't able to drop in with as much ammunition reserve as a standard infantry. So they didn't want them to waste ammo, and it's really, pretty pointless to have a 308, especially with a folding stock that is select fire. Pistol grip is made of polymer. Early ones could be wood, but very quickly they go to this kind of Bakelite polymer material. We have a storage compartment inside for cleaning gear or sight tools or whatever you might need. Easy to deploy. Has a small rubber bumper. Has a second sling swivel on the back if you want to use it. Last round hold open with release. Still has the winter trigger. Now interestingly, they had to modify the angle of the trigger to work with the new pistol grip. This is all a little bit different for more comfortable. And obviously, while the Italian military would not purchase these in huge numbers, they would use them and use them for a very long time. For completeness' sake, there's also the Mark IV, also known as the Nigerian and often referred to as the light machine gun, the squad automatic version. We have a video comparing it to the M14E2 or M14A1, so check that out if interested, and we go pretty well into detail. It has a barrel that's 20.8 inches, so just under 21, and a longer gas system. It's more like a M1 Grand. I just thought people would like to see the Paratrooper, and then I thought we'd talk about semi-autos in the USA because it's been a very neat story. Beretta was always a commercial company, and after World War II, they were starting to try to really sell more to the international market, both civilian and military. They would achieve success selling either complete BM59 rifles or offering a conversion service. For example, Argentina would have them convert quite a large number of their guns. Prior to 1968, a few BM59s would come in the country, roughly 200-ish. So many would be select fire, and they would be on the registry. They're still registered today. Some also might have come in as semi-autos only, converted by Beretta or made officially by Beretta. It's a little unclear. There are stories about people serving over in Europe and going to Italy and actually ordering a BM59, for example, sailors in the Navy, and having it shipped back home, which is kind of neat. So there were just a couple of hundred at most BM59s. Now in 1964, Golden State would introduce the Santa Fe rifle as the M59, and this was, people would consider it a BM59, but it really wasn't. It was its own thing. It was a modified M1 Grand, rechambered for 7.62 NATO, 308. It did take BM59 magazines, but it had a unique mag parts, or I should say magwell parts, catches and latches and such. So, kind of problematic. Also, they used re-welded Grand receivers and modified two-piece barrels sometimes. So the Golden State guns have a real mixed bag reputation. Some were okay, some were pretty rubbish. The main thing is they weren't true BM59s, even though Golden State had a license to use the Beretta name for a while, and they did. This didn't last terribly long, though. And they never called them a BM59. Like I said, they used the M59, which is close, but to the discerning person, there is a difference. The first true civilian import of a BM59 semi-auto would come with the BM59. These would come in through Benet, which is owned by the same gentleman who owned Gold Rush. He would import a few samples in 1967, then the Gun Control Act would pass in 68, and then he would get his first order of the so-called BM59s in 1969, and he was not happy with them because while the samples were exactly like the military guns, except for semi, of course, the actual production BM69s were not. They lacked the grenade sights. They usually came in with either the early style slotted hider or just a fake hider. You honestly need something out here for reliability and also to hold the system on, so you can't just have a bare barrel. So they either have a fake device out here or the early 5 slot, no grenade sights. They would have the spot on the gas tube for the bipod, but the bipod would not be standard. Benet would charge an extra fee for the bipod. I believe it was around 20 bucks. They would also not have the military butt plate, the rubber butt plate with the trap door. Instead, they would have like a brown rubber solid butt plate. So they were commercialized, and this actually led quickly to a disagreement between Benet and Beretta, and only one batch was ever manufactured and sent over in 1969. No one knows exactly how many came in, but it was a very small number, 150, maybe even just 120. So the BM59 is quite rare, but it is a true Italian-produced gun. For quite some time, that would be about it. Sporting guns were popular, military styles weren't. But then another company, Berben, would import the BM62. The BM62 would come in the late 70s, rolling through the early 80s, I think around 79 to 81. And it was a further sporterized version. Now, the BM62 was a European semi-automatic offering from Beretta, and so they brought over an American version. It would take the BM69 concept and push it one step further. We would have early on the same rubber brown butt plate solid. Later we would go to a black butt plate with the Beretta logo molded into it. We would go to a commercial grade walnut furniture set with finger grooves in the stock. We would also have more commercial grade finishing to the metal. We would not have the grenade launcher nor this lug for the bipod. We would also just have a fake tube out here, and that we would not have the stripper clip guide. So the BM62, while still fully Italian and honestly very well made, was very much a commercial gun. They would even ship them with shorter, lower capacity magazines of 5 or 10 rounds, although they would take the standard 20, of course. Now, over the years, many people would take a BM69 or a BM62 and retrofit military BM59 parts on them as they became available because they were still parts compatible. This gun is interesting because it's actually one of the Benet sample guns that came in before the standard production. Now, when it came in, it had the standard stock, but it did come in with the shorter 18.4 inch barrel. I put the quick detach on it and the para stock, but you know, to have a gun that came in with the Italian short barrel for the carbine and the original receiver. Now, interestingly, this is a modified M1 Grand receiver that they used, just going to show that the earlier production guns. Now, as they would start to run out of original Springfield receivers or Winchester or whatever, they would start making their own receivers at Beretta that were purpose-built from the very beginning to be BM59. However, just because it says PB for Beretta, it could have also been a Beretta M1 Grand receiver. I have seen that, where you will run across a gun that was made in Italy, but originally as a Grand. Also, there's a lot of the earlier guns that were converted over, like the Type 02 and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting history. These are very fun guns to collect. And that was pretty much the status of the imports. No more have really come in since then. I really think this is a better gun than the M14. A little bit heavier, but also a little bit shorter. And these tri-compensators do an excellent job at checking recoil. These use M1 Grand style slings too. Not surprising. So let's get back to this gun. By the way, this is an original Italian military mag pouch for the BM59. It holds 2 mags. It's actually a modified British pouch, I think originally made for the Sten or the Bren, but they modified it a bit to hold 2 mags. It's actually very roomy. Interestingly, they didn't issue a large number of magazines for the BM59 in Italy. Instead, they went to high quality mag. Instead of issuing multiple mags that were kind of cheap to produce, they just produced a few high quality ones. So some soldiers would only have 1 mag, many would just have 3 or 4. Very rarely would you see more than that. But of course you could always top these guns off with stripper clips. Well, that gets us to Springfield. That was the end of the true imports. However, in the late 70s, Mr. Bob Reese would go to Italy and negotiate with Beretta and the Italian government to purchase literally tons of surplus and leftover BM59 parts, accessories, jigs, toolings, receivers, barrels, stocks, whatever. Because by this point, the AR-70 was being developed into the AR-70-90. The military had all the BM59s it needed. It no longer needed its older M1 Grands. And it had quite a few leftover parts from the old Berben and Benet runs that were, you know, kind of very short-lived. So they were very happy to work with Mr. Reese. And this is how Springfield Armory ended up with so many BM59 parts and some accessories, but mostly parts, beginning in the early 80s. And they started to assemble these and offer them around 1983, 1984, and running through quite a long time, actually. And these guns, although they would be assembled in the USA, would be assembled pretty much from all Beretta parts. And of course, this is before the 89 ban, so 922R doesn't matter. The barrels would be Italian. The receivers would be Italian. Now, some receivers, like this one, were already row marked PB for Beretta. Others were incomplete forgings, and they'll just be marked Springfield Armory. But either way, the forgings were done in Italy. And these guns would have all the military features. I have not modified this gun, except I did put the short 5-inch on it just for fun, but I've got this 7. But these are essentially very nicely done kit guns anyway, so I don't feel bad about making a few light modifications. Why not? But unlike the BM59 and BM62, the Springfield BM59 guns could have all the full features. And they would do several variations because, again, they're building with, you know, all these parts that they bought as surplus. This would be the most common, the standard version here. Now, interestingly, a lot of these standard versions would have the flip-up butt plate from the Mark II and Mark IV. But some of them would have the more standard rifle butt plate like this one. Probably just whatever Reese obtained. The stocks could be of different styles and such a bit. Most would have the... Hello, kitty. Most would have the 19.3-inch barrel, but they would do some of the Paratrooper versions with the 18.4 and QD muzzle device. They would also do folding stock versions with the longer 19.3. They would do the 5-inch and the 7-inch extended device. Mostly they would have the bipod. They would usually almost always have the stripper clip guide. They were assembled correctly. They would have the fold down winter trigger. They would do a so-called Nigerian version, Mark IV. The problem was, though, they did not receive that many paratrooper stocks and grips and such from Italy. So while some could be made with original parts, many of the paratrooper stocks used on the Springfield guns were actually U.S. contract made. They're very easy to tell from the originals because while they're made of metal, they don't have the folding strut down here. And the butt plate doesn't fold. Also, most of the Springfield guns would have a wooden pistol grip rather than this Bakelite because they just didn't have enough, and so they contracted with an American company to make wood grips for them. It's just neat. They also did some copies of the BM59 and BM62 built with leftover parts. They even did a few of something more like an M1 Grand. They did some Grand builds using Italian parts, either with the in-block system or magazine-fed Grands, so much like a BM59E or BM59 SL. Neat guns, and they were really underappreciated for a long time. I think people thought they were cool, but I don't think they realized just how Italian they were, and in some ways, even though they were assembled here, they were much closer to a military issue than the actual imports because the imports have been so neutered. Well, in the early 90s, I believe around 92, Springfield went through a financial difficulty, and their BM59 assets were transferred to a different company under the name of Reese. And this is when the company would split up with the fathers and sons and things in different directions. So while Springfield would stop offering the BM59, Reese would continue building them from what parts they had in ever increasingly small batches until the early 2000s, around 2001, 2002, when they really ran out of most of their parts. And then around 04, 05, Reese went out of business. Mostly just retired and sold off what few parts they had left, which by that point were not many. And so they're gone today, and they have been for a long time. But in just the last couple of years, a large number of military surplus BM59 kits have been imported. Before this, we would see some BM59Es from Argentina that still had the original barrels. That's what my rifle is built on in the other video. And now we're seeing true BM59s like this coming in out of Italy. Now, unfortunately, those kits are missing the barrels because of the 05 restrictions on barrels for machine guns. However, companies are making U.S. barrels, and there are a few Italian loose barrels still floating around. And so there are companies making receivers for these, brand new, or other people modifying Grand receivers to work with the kits, which is really neat. It's led to kind of a resurgence in the BM59. Also, mags are finally relatively affordable. For a long time, these mags, because not a lot were ever made in Italy, were pretty rare in the U.S., and so brought big money. They're still not cheap, of course, but they're a lot cheaper now than they were a couple of years back. And as I said, like my BM59E, it was built by James River, who is doing several versions, one just like this. They're also doing a carbine version, some kind of more creative versions that aren't really based on anything Italian military, but it's neat, and they seem to be of good quality. I know I'm definitely happy with my BM59E, and right now they're priced reasonable for a modern 7.62 style mag-fed gun. That's kind of what gave us the impetus to do this video today and just talk about the semi-auto history. But really neat guns. The M14, the M1A gets all the love, even being from Springfield. But as I said in those other videos, I would definitely take this over that. For one thing, Italy did it on such a better economy, and they made a better gun. That's probably why it stayed in service exponentially longer than the M14 and was used by more nations than the M14. And for collectors today, it's just something really neat. Springfield and Reese together would do approximately 3,000 to 4,000 semi-auto guns. Now, combining everything we know, adding up the imports and those and a few other things here and there, that gives us a total for either the Springfield or the pre-year imports of about 4,800 to 6,200 semi-auto BM59s with a few registered select fires in there too in the USA. Now, that's not counting the newer builds by James River, of course, but you know, the older ones. So not a large number, quite small. So if you're a collector, something to worth looking into, especially if a price comes along on one. Very nice guns. Well, hope you kind of enjoyed my little rambling. Just felt like talking about these today. We were going to take them out shooting and so on and so forth. If you have any questions or want to share your own stories below, we'd really recommend them. Especially if you have a James River too. We'd like to hear how you like their BM59s. I'm interested to see how the newer builds are. Mine still has the original longer barrel, and it's built on a modified Garand receiver by them. The newer ones are US barrel and receiver. So I'd love to hear how they work. If you like the video, please click like. And if you'd like to help support this, please click on the link and check out our Patreon page. BM59 Para. This is Misha. And we'll catch you next time.